Welcome to OLC 4.0. This is Term 1B. We are on Class 23 doing A36 and A37, and it is Tuesday, January 23rd. This is our last week of term, and I am Jillian Percy. All right, we are going to skip right over to today's work today. We are going to be working on learning the format of a cover letter, applying our understanding to create a cover letter to respond to a job advertisement, learning some formats for a resume, and applying our understanding of those formats to create a resume of our own. Okay, so lesson 14 is all about applying for work. A letter of application, known more commonly as a cover letter, is normally required by employers, along with a resume from potential employees who are interested in more permanent types of jobs that generally pay higher salaries. That isn't 100%, by the way. A lot of times, though, for like cashier or minimum wage jobs, the store may have just like an application form you fill out. They don't really need a resume. So the types of jobs for which a cover letter and resume are requested by employers are ones as well that there are usually more qualifications needed for. So for example, jobs that require college and university graduates would be applying for, in most cases, would require a formal application consisting of a cover letter and a resume. A resume will provide an employer with essentially the same information as that found on an application form, but the formatting is the decision of the person applying for a job. So formatting is like how you arrange the information on the page. A resume is a much more formal channel of communication, demonstrating organizational skills in addition to the necessary content. A cover letter is kind of like your introductory letter to your resume. Your letter will state, first of all, that you are applying for a certain position or a suitable position in some cases. And secondly, a few words about your education, work experience, and skills, especially as related to the position applied for. A lot of times people don't change their resume much, but if you've done a lot of different jobs, certain skills on your resume may be more important for one job, and you may want to highlight other work experiences for a different job. So having a cover letter kind of allows you to specialize your what you want employers to notice, basically. You can also inquire about the possibility of an interview, and finally, thank the person for his or her time. A cover letter should be on a computer printout, except for your signature near the bottom of the page, on one page or less. It should be neat with no errors in spelling, grammar, or punctuation. Shortly, there's going to be a cover letter, not actually right next slide, but we'll show you that in a minute. Cover letters can also be great if you're writing to a company that you would like to work for, but that doesn't have any positions advertised yet. Often there can be a really big delay between when a position opens and when they list a job posting. And sometimes a letter that comes at the right time can help you get their attention before they even see another resume. I've even known one or two people who had a job especially created for them because somebody high up in the company really liked their personalities or their skills or their resume and really wanted to work with them. So they just kind of invented a job. So that is something to think about. That's going to work more with bigger companies where they have a larger budget and they can do that kind of thing. But it is something to think about if there's a company that you're like, oh, I've always wanted to work for them. Okay, so a cover letter is essentially a special type of a business letter. So we're going to be working on business letters today, essentially. And a business letter is somewhat different from a typical friendly letter that most of us probably written at some point. On the next page is an example of a business letter with the different parts labeled. And what do you notice about the letter? Okay, so this physical layout is what's called like a modified block format. A straight up block format would have all this information starting on the left-hand side. So this is considered modified because they have some information on the right-hand side to balance things out. When that happens, sometimes this is also over on this side too. It depends. Generally, most employers do not really care if it's block or modified, although I would say I think full block is more common these days because of how much electronic communications we're doing. So you always want to include the address of the sender first. That should be the first thing they see, who is sending this information. Then you want to put the address of the recipient, like who are you sending it to? This is especially important, again, if you're working for or applying to a big company. Maybe the person listed was, the human resources manager, but it's just changed. And now it's a new person, but it's still the human resources manager. So that can kind of help make sure that your um, resume goes to the exact right person. Uh, then you would put the date. Um, some people will hang on to resumes like for a certain year and then they'll throw them out. So that's important to put on there. Salutation is just the greeting. Um, Dear Mr. C. Brown, for example. If you have no idea who is receiving this, like there's no information in the job ad, you can just put Dear Sir or Madam. However, one thing you can do is call the company themselves and just have a quick discussion with the receptionist of like, hey, I'm going to be sending you a cover letter and resume for that job. Who should I address it to? And sometimes they will give you the actual name. And most people like to see their own name on their letters. It's just kind of that little extra step that might make your cover letter stand out. The opening sentence is going to get right to the point and state why the letter is being written. So it's going to dive right in and be like, I saw your recent advertisement and I'd like to apply. Or, I haven't seen any job postings, but I'm really interested in working for your company. So whatever you have to do to kind of make it really clear right from the start. Business people are often super busy and they're not going to spend a lot of time if you don't make it obvious really quickly what it is you're sending them for. Then you're going to have kind of small paragraphs. You don't want to make long paragraphs here. Each point needs to have its own paragraph. Using paragraphs as a structure can help the recipient understand the points being made in the letter. So one thing might describe like your education that you think applies to the work. Another one might mention work experiences that show that you could do a good job. Another part might mention personal traits or skills that you have that might work. And then you would have like a closing statement, which may kind of reemphasize your first statement, or may also kind of mention, I'm available for an interview if you'd like to talk to me. Here's how I can be reached. You want to make sure that your language is formal. You don't want to be casual or chatty. You don't want to use slang or emojis, right? This is a formal letter going to a stranger, so you want it to sound um, very serious and adult, basically. Most people end business letters with something like yours sincerely or just sincerely. Then you'd usually put like a written version of your name here and then a printed version of your name down below in case people can't read your signature, which is really common. So don't worry about that. Okay, so just comparing really quickly a business letter versus a friendly letter. The nature. So a business letter or a commercial letter, it's impersonal and it's universal in nature. A personal letter is fully personal, like it's only meant for one person, whereas a business letter could go to any number of people in the company. Purpose. A business letter is exchanging various business related issues and information because you might be sending something besides a cover letter. We're doing cover letters today, but maybe you're trying to sell them something, or maybe you have a complaint or whatever. All those kind of things are also business letters. A personal letter is usually exchanging personal or family related affairs and information. Scope. Business letter scope is really wide. It can contain all sorts of different types of business information. A personal letter scope is kind of limited and is usually only going to list your information and maybe some questions about the other person. Structure. Business letters generally have to follow a recognized structure. A personal letter could follow any kind of structure, right? You could include all sorts of emojis or pictures or photographs or whatever you felt like. It doesn't matter because it's just going to a friend. Formality. A business letter maintains formal rules and procedures. Personal letter is informal and may include very casual language. Size. Business letters are generally very concise in size and they avoid irrelevant matter. It would be pretty common for most business letters to stick to one page because they know people don't have a lot of time to read. Whereas a personal letter might be small or it might be really large. If you were, say, traveling overseas and sending your best friend information about the countries you visit, maybe you're writing several pages, right? And you're not really worried about getting the point. You're just trying to, keep your friend in contact with you as you're doing a special trip. Types. Business letters can be categorized differently, right? It might be sales, might be an invoice, might be a cover letter, might be complaint, or all sorts of different things. A personal letter is generally can't be really categorized. It might cover all sorts of topics. The salutation in a business letter is going to be sir, dear Mr., dear Mrs. A personal letter might be dear friends or my dear or my love if it's a romantic person or mom or dad. Um, Business letter language should be generally pretty easy and simple. It might include some business specific jargon, right? The letter that you're writing to, say, an auto company might be very different than the letter you're writing if you're trying to get hired at, say, a newspaper. Personal letter might include very easy casual information, might include poetry or bits of songs, might include talking about your emotions. The business letter copy is preserved. In other words, usually businesses are going to hang on to copies. It generally is kind of like a safety in terms of showing what they've said to people, referring back to something. Like if somebody's trying to sell them something, they may not want it right then, but they may put it in a file for, hey, later on down the road, we might want to look at this. A personal letter really depends. Some people will save all the letters they get. Some people will just read it and throw it in the garbage. Um, Business letter will use a direct and may use a persuasive method. It doesn't always, it kind of depends. A personal letter is usually only direct. Now, having said that, you might write something that was persuasive, like, hey, I'm, in London having a great time. Why don't you come and visit me? Right. But business letters are more likely to be persuading somebody to take a certain type of action, to buy something, to resolve a complaint, to get hired, that kind of thing. Okay, so here's the actual assignment. Writing the cover letter, this is worth 30 marks. So please take your time and do your best job because it's only a letter, so it's not too hard to do, but it is worth a fair bit of marks. So following the sample letter, which is going to come up, your task with this assignment will be to carefully read a job advertisement chosen from a newspaper. For example, the Sioux Lookout Bulletin or the Wawate News, or maybe you get the Thunder Bay Chronicle Journal, and write a cover letter in response. You are to do a rough copy that's handwritten of your letter and then revise and edit it as necessary. You are then to make sure you do a final copy of this letter on a computer. Both the rough copy and the final copy are to be submitted to me for marking. As you prepare to develop your letter, think about your purpose, which is to get a job. Who is your audience? Maybe the boss, maybe it's the human resources manager, and provide the most important details of information you can as an introduction to your resume. Once again, you want to make sure there's no mistakes in spelling, grammar, and punctuation. So for this, the rough copy will be worth 15 marks, and the final copy will also be worth 15 marks. If you don't have easy access to a newspaper, there is also a website called www.siouxlookoutjobs.com. It's the Sioux Lookout Hudson Job Board. I do find almost anything that's listed in the newspaper, like Sioux Lookout, is also going to be listed there. This is one that a lot of people use. I certainly have looked at it myself when I was looking for jobs. So if you are wanting to practice actually looking for work, it's a great one to check out. It'll tell you when it was posted, what the job title is. Usually gives you a fair amount of information about what kind of work experience you need, what kind of education you need, what kind of skills they're looking for, what kind of personality they're looking for, all those kind of things. So I'm just going to jump really quickly here. Here is an example. This is a full block format. Here they've put their address. I would also have put, like, see how it's Debbie Snow down here? I would have put Debbie Snow up here as well so that they see my name right away, not just at the end. And then they put the date here. Then they are addressing this to the home hardware. Attention the manager. If you know the manager's name, write it there. If you didn't, like I said, I would call the company and just ask. They're not going to mind giving it to you. It's not like it's a secret or anything. Then, dear Mr. or Mrs., and usually their last name. If you're not sure, sometimes some women are not cool with Miss or Mrs. or Ms. Um, Sometimes for women, I would just put the first and last name because that way you avoid irritating somebody if they have really strong opinions on that. Some women could care less, but there are some women who feel really strongly about it. Having said that, because there's only one option for men, most of them don't mind being said called Mr. Here it says, I would like to be considered for the position of cashier at your store as advertised. At present, I'm a student with Wassa Distance Education Center and need only 2 credits in order to graduate with my OSSD. By the way, I would only mention how many credits you need if you're really close. If you still got 15 credits to go, I would mention that in the cover letter. One course I am taking this term is OLC 40, which focuses on reading and writing as communication skills for the workplace. I now feel confident that I can be an effective team player at your store and that I can handle the duties of cashier. I worked as a cashier part-time last year at the Northern Store in Pickle Lake. This would be a spot where I would list some of the things I did as a cashier, right? I opened the cash and made sure we had the correct amount. I closed the cash and was always within, $10 of what we were supposed to have. Any other duties that you actually did at the job as a cashier, I would mention here so that they know, oh, okay, well, that's what we would want her to do too, right? Um, Again, I would not mention high school at all if you aren't pretty far along, or it would depend if they mentioned it in their job ad. Some people will say high school required. Some people would be like something like high school preferred but not required. So if you're nowhere close to finishing high school, I would just not mention it in the cover letter unless they're specifically asking for it. Here it's talking about their personality traits. I am an honest and hardworking person and also friendly and outgoing, right? I have good oral and organizational skills as required for this position, and I have some knowledge of building materials. Now, if I had any work experience, like if I had worked construction for a summer, or if my shoemiss built shelves for people and I helped out, that is where I would mention right there specific instances that I had done um, that kind of work at a professional level. I am willing to learn as much as possible in order to do my work successfully. So I'm hoping that you give me an opportunity in this position. And then they do their closing paragraph. I can be reached at any time for an interview at 928-1234. Again, only say that if it's really true. If you turn your phone off a lot or you run out of minutes a lot, I would not put it that way. I would instead say something like, please send me an email at blah, blah, blah. Um, Thank you for your time. Yours sincerely. And here they've got the signature and then they've got their name. And then this isn't as common anymore, but they've written ENCL, which stands for enclosed. And enclosed is a resume. A lot of times you would list what else was enclosed so that the person who receives it knows that they got everything that was sent. Okay. Um, Here is the rubric that I would be using to mark this. I'm going to show you some more examples in a minute, but I want to make sure I cover the rubric here. So I'm going to be looking at, does it follow the cover letter format? Many errors would be a D, some errors would be a C, more or less follows as a B, and if it follows it with excellent effectiveness, then an A. Has a clear purpose. This would be for both the rough and the good. Sometimes people do the rough really sloppy because they think that's what I want to see. No, I want to see a strong rough and then an even better good. Okay. So if the purpose isn't stated or a significant amount of the letter is unrelated to purpose, um, purpose unclearly stated or may include some non-relevant information. Purpose is clearly stated and most information reflects that purpose. Purpose is stated extremely well and almost all information reflects that purpose. Shows awareness of the audience, including style and tone. So have you written in a manner that is appropriate to write to a potential boss? Details include personality traits, skills, and work experience. Every cover letter should include all three of those categories. Almost any job is going to look for personality traits, right? The type of job that needs like a salesperson who needs to be really friendly and outgoing and great with people is maybe very different than what might be needed for somebody working, say, night security, where they're going to be all by themselves and have to be fine with being alone and for most of their job and being very quiet and need to be really successful without a lot of supervision. Those jobs require different types of personality skills. So you want to make sure that you emphasize the personality traits that you have that would be useful in that job that you're trying to get. The good copy must show some changes in the wording, in the sentence structure, in the grammar, the paragraphing. The good copy must also be edited for spelling, punctuation, and capitalization errors. Also, if you were using this cover letter for real, I would strongly suggest having a friend read it over. Sometimes when you've been working on something for a long time, you just don't notice the errors anymore, whereas a friend might see it right away. Okay, we looked at that. Here is another example. I just wanted to show you that there is some other ways if you wanted to do it. Here they put her name kind of big up top. Here's her contact information. Here they put the date to the side, and then what job she has currently, and I assume, oh no, what job the person she's applying to, and their address. And then she put the cover letter on this side. Okay. Um, this is not written properly. It's just kind of written as an example. But this is just an example that they don't have to all look exactly the same, but this is a perfectly adequate format and is pretty typical of what most people are going to hand in to an employer. Okay. You want to brainstorm what you're going to say in your cover letter about yourself. Um, Remember, think about the skills, the experience, training, and personality traits they say they're looking for in a job ad. So I'm just going to show you an example from that job site. So here's an example where they're pretty specific about what they're looking for. And I wanted you to just kind of see this. Oh, I hope it's still up there. I didn't think about that. Hang on a second. Okay, they still have it. So here they have sales clerk. This was actually originally posted on October 2nd. It's full-time. You work in Sioux Lookout. It's the home hardware billing center. Let's see. Salary, it's going to depend on your education and experience. There are benefits and a retirement program available, and there's a staff discount. So here it says the objective, and they kind of summarize what personality traits you need, and then what kind of job uh, duties you're going to have. And here it talks about the education and skills required. Here it talks about what you're going to be responsible for. And they give a lot of information. And here they tell you how they want you to apply, who to apply to, and all that kind of stuff. So this is the kind of stuff you would really want to read first to make sure that you're really tailoring your cover letter to what they themselves say they're looking for. Because here, for example, assist customers with carrying out large and heavy items. I would be fine as a cashier, but I could not, for example, carry out large or heavy items. So if you knew that was an issue for you, then you wouldn't apply. On the other hand, if you're super strong and you know that's a great thing, by all means do it. Um, da, 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 da. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that you do want to be kind of careful of. All right. If they don't say a whole lot, because sometimes people will just put like looking for a sales cashier, apply here, and they don't really give you any details a lot, then you need to think about what you imagine the perfect employee in that job would have in terms of their skills, experience, training, and personality traits. I'm not going to go to that option, so I think it's kind of obvious what I'm trying to say here. Okay, remember that the rough draft needs to be handwritten, good copy on the computer. It's totally fine to choose a job that you don't actually have the qualifications for or that you wouldn't really want. Like we're just pretending here, so that's fine. I am just marking the writing. I don't care whether what you apply for is something you actually have the qualifications for. Although, like if you're applying for, say, a job as a nurse, obviously I would suggest that in your cover letter that you actually have training to be a nurse, right? So you would want it to match. There are some sample letters that you can use. to help set up the formatting in Google Docs. You should have access to Google Docs because you should have a student Gmail. It comes with being registered at WASA, and it comes as part of that package. If you aren't sure what your WASA email is, you can always call the office or call me or send me an email, and I can send you what your Gmail is. And it's fine to use your own Gmail. That's fine too. It does not matter. Okay, so if you're looking for Google Docs, log into your Google account first. And then if you go to the upper right-hand corner of the computer screen, there should be a little circle, and then there's a little box of dots. And if you click on that little box of dots, all the Google apps will show up that you have available. Now, sometimes there may be different apps, like I would have Classroom because I'm a teacher. I don't know if Classroom would really show up on yours. Um, Sometimes I find things that you use a lot will kind of migrate to the top, but that may not always happen. What you'd be looking for is this blue icon that says Docs. It's kind of the same thing as like Microsoft Word. Click on it and the blank screen will come up. So here's what you would see. And they usually just kind of show you some possible templates that you might want to use. So here is a possible letter. Here's another possible letter. I like this one best. I just think it works really well. Um, there's a green line there, but you don't have to leave the line there. You can always take it away. Hang on a second. I'll mention the next thing, I think. Nope. Okay, so let me see if I can, I think I've got this set up so I can get to there. Okay, so now I'm here. So for like I'm saying, if I didn't want this, I can click on it. Pretty sure I can. Hmm. Oh, if you are right in the main document, it may not let you change things. I think what I had to do was save everything, like save all those things, um, copy them, and then I opened up a new document, blank document, and put it all there. Okay, and that got rid of the line. So if you don't like the line, that's one easy way to do it. Okay. Here. Okay, for the rough draft, again, make sure you include your contact. Make sure you use the greeting. Remember to use a comma at the end of the greeting. The first paragraph is always going to mention what job posting you're applying for. Big companies may have anywhere from 10 to 60 job postings at one time. If you've ever done the exact same job or a very similar job, I would put it right there as well. So I am writing to apply for the job of full-time cashier, advertised on the Sue Hudson job board. As a cashier at Giant Tiger for the last 2 years, I have the experience and ability to do this job well, and I would love the opportunity to work in this new business you are opening. So right away, you're saying what you are applying for, and hey, I already have experience doing this job, so that they want to read more, right? Then you might have 2 or 3 short paragraphs. You're trying to persuade and sell them. What training have you had? Skills, personality traits. Short paragraphs are often a lot easier to read. And remember that a cover letter is never going to go over a page. The truth is, someone like a human resources person is reading hundreds of resumes. They generally don't give them a whole lot of time to get to the point. So you don't want to make them have to flip a page because they probably won't read the second page. The last paragraph will often suggest an interest in coming in for an interview and ways to contact them. It's usually upbeat and generally pretty confident. I know one funny thing is like in person, people don't want to brag and they don't want to sound like they're talking all great about themselves. And so sometimes it can be kind of hard when you're writing a cover letter to change that. But in business areas, like I wouldn't want to say something like, well, I think maybe I could do a good job on this because I don't sound confident. And the next person they're reading may sound super confident. And because they're paying you, they're not thinking, oh, that person is just kind of shy or they're being really honest. They're thinking, oh, they lack confidence. They probably can't do the job. So if you are very shy, or I know some people were kind of taught as a kid to never brag, and to not say like give yourself compliments. But when you're writing this kind of cover letter, you kind of have to, right? If it helps, think of it as if you're bragging about your best friend rather than yourself, and just write, all the good things that your best friend would say. And then, right, so you have the closing. Something like, I'd welcome the opportunity to meet with you and discuss what you're looking for in a successful candidate. I can be reached at, and again, make sure what you put there is a place you can actually be reached. If you have two phone numbers, like a home phone and a work phone, mention both of them and mention the hours. Like during the hours of 9 to 4, I can be reached at my office at blah, blah, blah. After 4, I can be reached at whatever place you can be reached at. So that's especially important if you only have a landline or if you keep your cell phone turned off at work because that's a requirement, which I know some people have, that kind of thing. Okay, so here is a cover letter checklist. So once you're finished your cover letter, just go through this checklist and see if you have these things. If you mark no for anything, you want to go back and change it when you do the good copy, right? Some, maybe you need to add some more details. But eventually, before you hand it in to me, you would want all of these to be yes. Do you have a clear audience? You've got a clear idea who you're sending this to. You've stated your purpose very quickly, probably in the first sentence. You've written in a formal tone. You've included your important skills, included your important personality traits. You've highlighted your most important work experience. You followed the appropriate letter format, which could be block, or you could do modified block if you want to, that's fine. Your rough copies in handwriting and your good copies on the computer, and you have made significant changes between your rough copy and your good copy. Okay. So I don't want to just see like one word crossed out. I would want to see you've polished up your writing. You've made great word choices. You've avoided repeating yourself. You've made sure all the sentences sound really good, that kind of thing. Okay, so now we are switching to the next assignment, which is going to be working on a resume. And there's a bunch of kind of information here, kind of general, which we're going to talk about. Career planning. Since you're completing this grade 12 English course, the assumption is that you'll most likely be graduating from high school soon. You have perhaps been thinking about what you'll do once you get your diploma. You may choose to further your education by attending college or university, or some other sort of post-secondary program away from home. You may be able to take some post-secondary courses while still living at home, for example, through Contact North. And I would check out a lot of colleges, even like down south, since COVID happened, offer a lot of more courses online than they used to, because they just know that even now, even though it's like not the thick of the pandemic, there are some people who are at risk who would just rather work online. You may choose to stay in your home community and continue with what you've already been doing, working at a current job, raising your family, and you may want to look for a suitable job in your community. The choice is yours to make, and there's a whole lot out there to choose from. What you decide to do is going to depend on your interests, needs, and skills. A career is a term used to cover unrelated types of work. So some examples of career are hospitality, aviation, education. An occupation or a job title usually is a bit more specific. So an occupation might be front desk clerk at a hotel, or pilot, or elementary teacher. So education might be my career, and maybe for part of the career I worked as an elementary teacher, later I worked as a high school teacher, maybe later on I work as a principal, that kind of thing. So I'm still in the same career area, but I've worked specifically different jobs. Okay, different sources of information about jobs. If you're trying to figure out about jobs, what are the best sources of information? Computer, internet. Now, career software and CD-ROMs, I don't think those are too common anymore. Experience is probably one of the best ways. You can do part-time work, volunteer work, job shadowing, work experience programs, co-op, print, professional journals, books, newspapers, magazines, government brochures, depending on what you're looking for. Video, TV, school library, public library. I would be cautious about this one. Like if you were seeing like like some movies on teachers. Sometimes they will portray things very unrealistically, and you might go into the profession thinking, "Oh, that's what teaching is going to be like," and then you're like, "Oh, wow, it is nothing like what I thought it was going to be." So I would be cautious about the video one. People, actually talking to teachers and counselors who know something about the profession you want to go into, talking to your friends and family, people who are working in that occupation, professional associations. So, like if I was wanting to be a nurse, I would probably try and talk to an actual nurse or an actual nursing student. I would take a look at some of the colleges and see what kind of programs they offer. Do they all look the same? Are some of them more specializing in pediatrics or geriatrics or addiction or what? So generally, I would say people are the very best sources, but looking at what the colleges offer and think you should know can also give you a good idea. So let's say I was looking at nursing and I didn't realize, oh, I'm going to need a whole bunch of math for nursing. Well, you might be like, oh, well, I'm not sure I like math enough to be able to do that. Or you may be like, oh, I love math and I'm super glad. So you want to kind of see what kind of skills are going to be needed. Career planning information. Now, this is taken directly from your work package. The thing I found was these job things didn't quite seem to work anymore. Um, this is an alternate link. It seems to link to exactly the same stuff, it's just one of those things where they've updated the website and changed it. So if anyone's on radio, it's https colon backslash backslash www.ontario.ca backslash page backslash programs dash for dash student dash success. If you put the words Ontario Job Bank, you're probably going to find something. This Life Beyond High School, you can see it's a 20-year-old site. I tried to find something similar that might be replacing it, but I could not find anything that related. Okay, so assignment 37 is also about, again, creating your resume. Your task is to develop a chronological resume, which means it's going to be in order on your own using the template or outline provided on the next page and based on the information provided with your sample. If you already have a resume that you've done before, take a close look at it and just revise it as necessary to meet the needs of the assignment. The assignment asks for a few categories that I don't feel are used as often these days, and you might not actually have on your personal resume, but for the purposes of the assignment, just add them in. You can always just take it back off later on. Also, if it's an older resume, maybe you need to update it and add some new work experience or training or whatever. The template for a resume when completed will be a rough copy only. It's got a bunch of like the categories. You are to revise and edit this rough copy as needed, and then produce a final copy on a computer. So again, the first part is handwritten, and then give me the final copy. Remember that your resume is used to show an employer that you are the best person for the job, so it has to be as professional looking as possible and include all your qualifications and positive characteristics. You want to make the greatest impression possible. So your rough copy is worth 15, and then your final copy is worth 15. Okay. Points to keep in mind. Your name or address can be either centered at the top of the page or it can be located on the left-hand margin. Your objective is to be something specific that you are hoping for. I feel like an objective is a bit outdated, but for the moment, they want us to do it. I will give you some examples in a minute. When you are listing information in the education and the work experience, ensure that you start with your most recent education and your most recent work experience, and then go backwards in time. This is because you want them to see your best qualifications and your most recent experience right away. So if I know some people are going back and finishing high school, um, you could put like a diploma pending if you're not quite finished. If you think you're going to graduate by the end of the year, you could say, graduation planned for June 2024, that kind of thing. And then if you're working something right now, that would be the very first thing you'd mention, and then your previous job kind of thing. List all the skills you have. Someone who looks at your resume should see jobs where you use these particular skills. For example, I would not write down that I'm skilled in leadership if I've never worked at a job where I was in charge of other people, because it's just not going to look believable. It has to be skills where it makes sense. List any 3 interests. This is one of those things that I don't think is usually included anymore, but this would be useful if you're applying for a job where your interests could help you get a job. So let's say you are an avid hiker, backpacker, you climb mountains for a living, and you're applying for a job at an outdoor sports equipment store. Well, then I would totally mention your interests right there, because they're going to want people who know and use this kind of stuff. Same thing, if you're applying for the job at Home Hardware and your personal hobby is doing a bunch of woodworking, you would mention that because, again, then you're going to be familiar with tools, you're going to be familiar with what people are talking about. List 3 references if you can. If you're really young, maybe you only have 2. A reference would be a person who knows you fairly well and would say some good things about you if called upon. Examples of references could be high school teachers, former employers, supervisors. Include the person's name, job title, address, and telephone number. You should not put any family members or relatives as references as possible. The exception would be if you worked for them. Like, let's say your family owned a restaurant and you worked at the restaurant, then it would be appropriate for you to list them. As an option, you can also just put the words available on request. If you are doing this for real life, if you're planning to use this, make sure you have asked the person that you list if it is okay to use them as a reference. You might want to make sure that they have a heads up that somebody might be calling them. If they seem reluctant, do not use them. That may be a person who didn't think you did a good job and might not give you a good reference. So that's kind of important. Don't use somebody if you think they're not going to give you a good reference. Okay, so here was an example of one that's filled out. There's a blank one in your unit where it wouldn't have all this information. It would just have objective, education, work experience, skills, interests, and references. Now, this is a pretty bare bones resume. I would probably want to write a little bit more about my previous job duties and skills, and I might format it a little bit differently. The less work experience you have, the more you want to make it clear what skills you have. So you're going to want to use a lot of verbs showing you what you know how to do. The other thing I would say, again, if you're quite young, but you've done some volunteer experience that you think might be relevant to the job, I would totally list it. So let's say you help out at your church by watching the nursery so people can go to church. And that's a volunteer job. But let's say you're applying for a job as a summer camp counselor. Well, then it'd be totally relevant to put that volunteer experience down, because it shows that you enjoy working with kids and that you've done that kind of work before. Same things. If you've done volunteer work where you're helping the elders, or you are helping to put on a community theater show and you're applying for a job where that's relevant, you might want to include volunteer experience. As long as you make it clear that it's volunteer experience, it still shows what skills that you have. So here where it says youth counselor, it just says directed recreational activities. I gotta say, I don't think that's enough information. You would probably want 3 or 4 things, depending on how long you worked there. If you were a youth counselor at a school for 3 years, you might want to list more things because you've probably done a lot more. Here, the person's only done it for a summertime, so they might just want 3 or 4 things. So here are some examples of things that you might want to do. Supervise children from ages 8 to 12, promoted teamwork and good sportsmanship, planned physical education activities to develop gross motor skills and strategizing skills, designed fine arts activities to develop fine motor skills and creativity, inspected cabins to ensure good hygiene standards were maintained, followed all safety guidelines, that kind of thing. Here, the second one, they kind of listed a few more things. Normally, I wouldn't see it put here by commas. I would normally see it listed each one by itself, but you kind of only have this tiny little spot. So possibly for your rough copy, you do it this way, and then for the good copy, you list them as a list rather than in this kind of format. You want those verbs to be the first thing people see. Okay, you can do this in Microsoft Word. You can also do this in Google Docs, just like we showed you that there were letter templates in Google Docs. There are also resume templates in Google Docs, and that can help with the formatting. If you're not used to doing a lot of formatting, they will have everything already set up. The one tricky thing is sometimes it can be hard to undo the formatting if you don't like it. If you know what you want to do, just use a blank page and set up your own formatting. That's fine as long as you're comfortable with doing that. Um, so, uh, okay, where are we? Okay, I might not get through every single thing today because I've only got about 4 minutes left. If I don't quite finish this up, I will tackle some of this tomorrow. I'm going to show you a quick example. Here are some other resumes from some other places. Um, if you're wanting to use something for a real resume, it's relevant to look at these kind of things and get some ideas. Okay. Keep in mind when you're doing your good copy, those subheadings like objective education, you want to make them stand out on your computer. You can do things like put them in bold or use italics. You could make it a slightly bigger font or put it all in capitals. You can try a slightly different font, but you don't want it to be too wacky. You could underline it, or you could do several options at once. You can also do your margins different depending how you like. Normal margins are fine. Some people might do a wide margin if they don't have a lot to say. Narrow margins, I'd be careful of. It can just look cramped. And if they are photocopying and sending it to anybody else in the company, you might have parts cut off. I would generally stick to normal, but there might be times where a wide might be useful to you. Okay. Here is a second. Okay. So this is the Spearmint resume from, you can see Google Docs. You would get there the same thing. You would click on here, you get to the little dots, you click on Google Dots, and it has your things. Now, they don't list the exact same categories that we do. Like we have one called interests. And I could say change the awards to interests. I would just go through and change it over to interests, and that's fine. I would also put something about references down there. Um, if you feel like it's too big, oh, see, they've got that's at 14, that's at 10, and this is that's at 11. Okay. You might want to make it smaller or bigger, depending on it. I wouldn't go too much smaller than 11 if you're going to hand it in. If you're sending it through uh, the computer, the internet, then it's not so important because I can make my screen bigger or smaller. But if you're sending it in, it's too tiny and the person you're reading can't read it, they may just eliminate it right out of hand, even though maybe you're the perfect candidate for the job. So that's something to be careful of. Okay, let me see here. Okay, I just want to quickly mention there is a program called Canva that has all sorts of templates for different types of projects, including resumes. It has both free and paid versions. I've used it for all sorts of things, including my resume, and I've always been able to get by just fine with the free version. If you are currently looking for work for real, I would definitely check these templates out. For the purposes of the assignment, you may need to make sure that it has the required sentence sections, but a lot of the formatting would already be set up for you. The one thing to be careful of is you might see some resumes with photos. In Canada, I would never put my own photo on my resume. It's kind of frowned upon because people are always worried about accusations of bias or prejudice based on your age, your gender, or your race. So I would not use a template that includes your photograph because it's just not considered appropriate in Canada. The exception might be if you're applying for a job as like a model or an actor or something where your looks would actually be relevant. Okay, we have hit our limit. I will kind of quickly show you Canva tomorrow, and we're going to try and get through 3 or 4 assignments tomorrow so we can get to the end of this unit by the end of the week. Thank you so much for showing up today, and I hope you found this helpful.